You know that static hiss from an old TV? The one that plays in the dead of night when nothing else is on? I used to find it calming, until mine started whispering a name, my name. And last night, the static didn't just whisper. Something pressed against the glass from the inside. And this morning, I found a single tiny handprint on the outside of the screen is watching me. And it's learning how to get out. The rain hammered against the windows of my new old house, a dreary inheritance from a reclusive aunt I barely knew. The place smelled of dust, forgotten memories, and loneliness. It was on that first Saturday, hunting for spare sheets in the attic, that I found it. A flicker of dull light caught my eye beneath a yellowed wedding dress pattern. I pulled the dust cover away and caught my breath. It was a television, not a flat screen, but a colossal mid-century monolith housed in a polished wooden console with a massive, convex green screen that bulged like a watchful eye. It was a beautiful, haunting artifact. As a digital artist, I was captivated by its vintage grotesqueness, a perfect, creepy art piece. I decided it belonged in the living room. The thing was impossibly heavy, but I managed. It sat there, silent and dark, a king from a forgotten era holding court in my modern space. The power cord was old, fabric-wrapped, with a weird two-prong plug. I pressed the power button. Nothing. Not a flicker. Just a faint, almost inaudible hum if I pressed my ear to the wood and a ghost of an ozone smell. The first incident happened 3 nights later. A sound jolted me from sleep, not the white noise of dead air, but a persistent, low hiss from downstairs. My heart thudded against my ribs as I crept down. The TV was on. The screen glowed with a dim, swamp-like light, and in the center a figure, a girl. Her back was to me, silhouetted against the murky green, her long hair hanging limp. She was just standing there, facing a wall I couldn't see. I yanked the plug from the wall. The screen died instantly, plunging the room into a silence that felt heavier than before. "It's just fatigue," I whispered to myself, shivering under my blanket. A trick of the light. It happened again the next night, and the next. Each time the girl was closer to the screen. On the 4th night, she turned her head. Not all the way, just a 3/4 profile. I could see the pale curve of her cheek, the dark fringe of her lashes. I stood frozen in the doorway, cold sweat tracing my spine. I didn't just unplug it this time. I coiled the cord tightly and locked it in a drawer. During the day, the TV was just furniture. But as dusk fell, the atmosphere in the house would shift. The air grew thick, syrupy. Shadows stretched too long and ended in places they shouldn't. I started hearing whispers, not words, but the texture of a voice, a sibilant rustle hidden within the house's natural sounds, like a station bleeding through from another frequency. I tried to get rid of it, but the moment I decided to take it to the curb, a crippling wave of dread would wash over me. My hands would shake, my vision would blur, and a frantic, childlike whisper would scream inside my skull, "Don't leave me alone with it, don't!" I called an electrician, a burly man with grease under his fingernails. He snorted at the set. "This old thing? It's a dummy. Ain't even got a tube in it. Look!" He rapped his knuckles on the dark screen. It echoed hollowly. "And this cord?" He held up the frayed end. "See these wires? Oxidized to hell. They ain't connected to nothing. This thing hasn't had power in 50 years. The floor felt like it dropped away beneath me. He left, shaking his head at the city girl spooked by junk. I was alone with a hollow box that broadcasted nightmares. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch facing the screen, a kitchen knife in my lap. At 3:07 a.m., the TV lit up. The girl was there, her palms and face pressed against the glass from the inside. Her features were pale, stretched with a terror so profound it stopped my breath. Her mouth was open in a silent scream. She wasn't trying to get out. She was frantically pointing behind me, her eyes wide with desperate warning. A glacial cold seized my limbs. Slowly, against every screaming instinct, I turned my head. It stood in the doorway to the hall. A tall, impossibly thin figure, woven from shifting shadows and television static. It had no face, just a blurred, pale smear that crackled with interference. It took a silent, gliding step into the room, one long, distorted arm reaching for me. I scrambled backward, falling against the TV console. The girl on the screen slammed her hands against the glass. This time, a sound erupted, a piercing, digital shriek of pure noise that erupted from the speakers, flooding the room with a wave of blinding static. The thing in the doorway flinched, its form dissolving for a split second at the assault. And I understood. The TV wasn't a doorway, it was a cage. And the girl wasn't the prisoner, she was the warden. It was what she was keeping locked away. My fear, my interference had weakened the bars. The static shriek died. The thing reformed, its featureless head tilting toward me. It took another step. The air grew frigid. Acting on pure primal instinct, I fumbled for the disconnected power cord. With trembling hands, I shoved the ancient, useless plug into the wall outlet. Nothing happened. The creature glided closer. I could feel the null, silent void of it sucking the heat from the room. I pressed my palms flat against the cold glass of the screen, staring into the terrified eyes of the girl, pouring every ounce of my will into a single, silent thought. I see you. I believe you. Help me. For a second, nothing. Then a single, bright white pixel ignited in the center of the screen. Then another. The entire screen flashed with a light so pure and violent it was physical. I was thrown back, blinded and deafened by a final, terminating wave of sound. I woke up on the floor hours later, sunlight streaming through the windows. The house was silent, the TV was dark and dead. The plug lay on the floor, far from the outlet. A week passed. Normalcy started to feel like a possibility. It had been a waking nightmare, a stress-induced hallucination. I almost believed it. Until this evening. I was dusting the console when I saw it, a faint, almost imperceptible smudge on the polished wood near the base. I bent closer, my blood turning to ice. It wasn't a smudge, it was a scratch, several scratches. They formed clumsy, childlike letters, as if carved by a desperate fingernail from the inside of the cabinet. It is through. My breath hitched. I slowly raised my eyes to the dark, reflective surface of the screen, and I saw it, not in the screen, in the reflection, standing right behind my chair, closer than it had ever been before, its static-filled form shimmering in the dim light. The TV doesn't turn on anymore. It doesn't need to. It's become a mirror, and every time I look away, the reflection in the glass shows it taking another silent, sliding step closer. The girl is gone, the cage is open, and the signal is finally, clearly coming through.